I think we're live now.
Are we live? This is going to be fun. First time we ever did this.
I think we're live.
You would think for the live show, we would be able to see Renee in full person, you know?
Oh,
You
there's
do see me, the little minion.
Is that
There I
what you are?
am.
Oh, yeah, minion.
Yeah, I'm a minion with a
Which
mic.
which minion is that?
That I'm not sure of. I just know it's a minion with a mic.
All right, so does anyone know how this is going to work?
well, we can start by answering some of the questions that oh, somebody says Renee face reveal when.
When or when?
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 We're focusing on the Q&A, with Mike right now.
Wow. Wow. So we know we got some questions already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we tell them what this is?
Tell them what it is.
Welcome to a live edition of Mic Drop Mondays. It is Monday. It is July 21st. This is the first time we've ever done this, but it should be live on YouTube and Facebook. And it's just going to be a Q&A session. So we already have some questions that have been submitted, and then kind of just answer them as we go. And then if you guys have more questions, comments in the chat, I guess you guys will be monitoring that. How did you guys like Renee and Sarah, like, is one of you looking at Facebook, one of you looking at YouTube, or how's this gonna go?
So
Can
I'm
we talk
looking
about
at
this?
both.
How many
um,
screens do you have over there?
I have two. I can actually see it in StreamYard also. So
Oh
that's pretty
wow.
cool. I did not know that it was going to do that. But yeah.
Well, I can't see nothing, so I would just rely on you guys to relay the questions, comments. Um, as long as they're a member of the union, all
Yeah.
questions are fair. Ask away.
Hi, Juanita.
Oh, you got time to say hi to your friends?
She wants to know where Mini Mike is.
Who won Mini Mike? Oh, Israel. Izzy Fontanez won Mini Mike. Mini Mike is in like Centralia. I think he lives in Centralia, Illinois. Yeah, we haven't heard from Mini Mike. He hasn't like how they have like the elf on the shelf and they like makes different appearances and shit.
Yeah.
We haven't heard from Mini Mike since he left the convention in Springfield a couple weeks ago.
Oh, we got a question. Has
Let's go.
James Henry appointed an investigator yet?
Yes, to my understanding, two investigators. Although I haven't seen anything officially, but he did inform me of this. There are different charges pending from different people. It's really been a weird process. Um, some of the charges have been, I don't want to use the word dismissed, but some of the charges have been adjudicated without appointing an investigator. And that happened because the executive council felt like those charges didn't merit appointing an investigator for, I don't know. I just tell you for my reading of the Constitution, and the language says what it says under Article 10 of the Constitution, and the way I read it, clear kind of English, it says it's basically there's a threshold issue there that if a member of the union brings forth a charge against an officer of the union, basically a member of the executive council, that if the charge is for negligence or for violating the terms of the Constitution, then you go into the next part. An investigator will be appointed. If the charges are deemed to be substantial, then you will have hearings and things like that. But for some of the charges that came forth for different reasons, the executive council, felt that there was not a need to appoint an investigator on some of those, but on other ones there were, and those are going forward. And I know there's two investigators I know the names, but I don't know, it hasn't been released, so I don't think it's my, I don't think I'm supposed to be the one to release the names, but yeah, Brother Henry did inform me. Because the charges are against President Renfro and Executive Vice President Paul Barner, therefore, the Vice President of the Union, which is James Henry, appoints an investigator, and he has done so, appointed 2 investigators. They're supposed to have 30 days to complete their investigation, and then the Executive Council will convene. We'll get the written report of those investigators, and then we'll vote on whether or not we feel that the charges are substantial. If they are substantial, like I said, it goes to hearings. If they're not substantial, at that point, it dies at that point.
Okay. So then we have 2 more. Did they do that again with Brother Riviera's charges?
Rivera, Michael Rivera, I just, as a side note, I know it's not the question, but that brother put a lot of effort and really did a good job presenting the charges. He presented a couple different charges and really did a great job. I thought his charges really, there was merit there. There was something worth looking into further for sure. And like I said, the Constitution calls for an investigator whether you feel that the charge has merit or not. Unfortunately, with Brother Rivera, his charges are ones on both occasions where the Executive Council felt like it wasn't necessary to appoint an investigator. So there's not an investigator on either of his sets of charges. But other people have submitted charges, and those did get an investigator appointed.
Okay. Then another one is, when is the all Spanish episode?
Um, that is a great question. Are they going to come on for that?
I think so. I think she'd be okay with it.
I'm real nervous about talking to my Puerto Rican brothers and sisters because they speak a whole nother language that I'm not used to. I speak Mexican Spanish. To me, that's real straightforward. I try to watch the shows from Spain. Yeah, that's a whole other language to pick up on that a little bit. But that Boricua and all that, man, that's it's going to be a challenge. And I don't know the terms either, like the post office terms, the mailman terms in Spanish. I don't know those either. So what I wanted to do was get together, and I guess we'll have to talk about this amongst ourselves, how we want to do it. But, maybe 3, 4, 5 different people to come on and, just give their experiences and talk about things, but, in Spanish. So maybe about a month to get that together. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think so. I think
Sarah,
that's
you speak
good.
Spanish or no?
I do not.
Yeah.
I can understand, but I cannot speak. No
Renee
sabo.
thinks she speaks, but I know she doesn't.
Very little, very little. Un poquito, little, very little.
Muy bien. O sea que si digo lo que sea, puedo hablar de ustedes y no me va a entender nada.
All right, what did you just say? Is there a translator or something there? Can somebody post in the chat
You
and tell me what
said
he
you're
just
going to get
said?
your Google Translate ready, so
Oh, yeah, no.
ready.
Juanita, can you let me know what he just said in the chat there?
Let's see. We'll give it a second. I'm sure she'll answer. We got Donald Worrell from Branch 1197.
Hello.
Okay. Well, we can start going over some of the questions that were posted on your Article 8 stuff.
Yeah, because we're not tired of talking about that yet.
I know, right? Let's see. So, I'll start from the bottom. What are the times that CCAs and PTFs can be forced to work over 60 hours? Is it just December?
No, there's no 60-hour limitation. There's a 12-hour limitation for CCAs, PTFs, and everybody, which is 11 and a half work hours. But there's no 60-hour limitation for anybody except for in the NERP. And the NERP is like I think the limitation is the first 11 weeks, or I'm not sure, whatever's in the NERP. It might be 8 weeks or 11 weeks. There's that restriction. But after that, after you're not a new employee anymore, just your average basic CCA or PTF, there is no 60-hour restriction. You can work 12 hours a day times 7 days a week, in theory.
Uh-huh. Okay. I'll try and get through all these because there's somebody who asks, how about the Angela By Telecom? Any thoughts on that? But I don't know what that was.
I don't know what that is either. We got to Google that. Are they there? Can they tell us what they're talking about? Angela By?
Angela By Telecom. I want to say it was like a recording of something. Somebody recorded something on the workroom floor, maybe?
Is that what Corey was talking about?
I think so.
I listened to Corey's episode today. What's today? Monday? Yeah, today I listened to it. But he was referring to something. He referred to two things. One was like a telecom and one was a screenshot of something. But I was just listening to the audio. I didn't go back and like look at it. I'm assuming he posted like the links and the pictures and stuff, or had Mallory to do it, you know.
Yeah.
Man, Mallory's pretty good, huh? Mallory, I was impressed. Did you guys listen to the heat safety episode from the Next Generation Carriers?
I caught like the end of it.
I listened to the whole thing. It was long, but I liked it. It was a lot of information there. And I mean, Manny Peralta, I think, stole the show, man. That guy, he's a wealth of knowledge. He did really good. But they gave each of the people like a question or 2-3 questions, you know, but they told them what the questions were ahead of time. So that, sorry, got a little action out there. They gave them the questions ahead of time so that they could kind of prepare a good answer. And Mallory was probably the very in depth, and she did a really good job with her questions, I thought. I mean, she does a lot of work for Maid Arbitration and stuff like that. So kudos to her. But I don't know if she posted those links. I haven't seen them, no, to answer the question. I've not seen that telecom and that screenshot or any of that. I just listened to Corey's episode.
Yeah. I didn't listen to it, so I like saw some of the conversation about it. That was it. Let's see. What else do we have? Oh, okay. He says we should listen to it.
Okay. It's on the Maid Arbitration website?
I believe it was the episode that came out today.
No, I know it was the episode today, but like anyway, I'm sure we can find the link.
Yeah. The Region 7 District Manager.
Oh, that's who that is? Region 7. It would have to be a state or something if it's a postal manager.
Uh-huh.
Like Minneapolis or something.
Yeah. Yeah, because what the NALC does the regions, but the Postal Service does districts?
Yeah, the Postal Service has like 50 districts, mainly based on the states.
Uh-huh.
Some states have multiple districts. Like here in Illinois, we got Illinois 1, Illinois 2. And then you have other states that are combined together. Like I know Kansas and Missouri is combined together. So it evens out to 50 districts throughout the country.
Oh, he said it's the Northland District.
Yeah, that's Minnesota.
Okay. Paul Levine says, I personally think it's BS that you can't sign up for work assignment and NS.
Yeah. I it's not right. It doesn't. There's nothing about signing the work assignment list for a regular scheduled day. I mean, you can't sign the work assignment list for an NS day, right? So when you sign the work assignment list, you're only signing up for a regular scheduled day overtime on your own assignment. And therefore, why would you not be available to sign that NS day list? And if our goal, which our goal should be to allow, to make sure that people aren't being mandated, that if, obviously the people that want the overtime have at it, the people that don't want the overtime, should be able to work their regular 40-hour a week schedule and no more if that's what they want. And the more people you have on the NS day list, for overtime, the less you have to, mandate. You want the more people as possible on that list, and there really is nothing that would keep the work assignment carriers from being able to, say, hey, I want to be on the NSA list as well, except for the contract language that prohibits it. But why is that contract language in there? Like, it doesn't really benefit either side. It's just some language that didn't get cleaned up, or for whatever reason, maybe it was not agreed to by the Postal Service, or I don't know. I don't know what happened in those negotiations, because as you guys know, it wasn't, everyone wasn't involved in the negotiations. And so we don't really know how all that stuff played out. But yeah, I would agree that should be, and I know that that's something that we can put forward in the next contract, and, hopefully. So I don't know if you guys saw that the people that were putting forth the idea for a special convention, they did a great job. I thought they put forth a valiant effort. Appreciate the efforts. It was going to be an uphill battle from the beginning. They worked hard at it, and they tried their best. But they put out a message recently, maybe last week, that it's just not going to happen. I think they ended up with 300 and something branches, which you needed, I think, over 700. So, and a lot of the branches, there was only 650 branches in Boston at the last convention. So to get more branches to sign on for a special convention that were even at the last convention, that's a heavy, that's a hard task to accomplish. So
For sure.
anyway, no shame in giving it a shot. Appreciate their efforts for sure. Um, anyway, but so there's not going to be a special convention. We're not going to have the ability to put forth our bargaining resolutions prior to the start of contract negotiations next year in February, which would have been better. It would have been a better way of doing things, in my opinion, and probably the opinion of most people. But nonetheless, hopefully we'll be able to put that forward, and I'm sure it'll come up at the convention in Los Angeles, and presumably there's very little chance that we'll have a contract by the time we convene in Los Angeles, August the 3rd to August the 7th of 2026. So pretty sure we'll be able to discuss that and put that forward, and hopefully make that change where the work assignment carriers will be able to get on the NSA list. And we'll see how people like having the two lists. I don't see any harm in it. I think that before, if you were on the ODL, that meant you wanted up to 12 hours. You could have the 10-hour preference before, but it was still, you could work up to 12 hours on a regular day, and also an NS day. Both of those things were included in there. But now you have the opportunity to say, I want to be on this list or that list or both lists. So to me, that's a better option for us as letter carriers. I don't see nothing bad with it, and we'll see what the response is from people, if they like it, or if we want to go another direction. But I know that's one thing that people said right away is, why can't the work assignment carriers be on the NSA list? So.
Yeah. Okay. So he also says that they kind of circumvented that volunteering for their NS. It's a small office, 10 routes, 1 PTF. Then we have, do you think they should even release a JCAM at this point?
I think they changed the language. Originally, the JCAM at the beginning had language that said it would be updated yearly. The idea was not that you would update the JCAM just based on a new contract. The idea was, and they used to do a lot more what they call step fours, and you would have national issues, and national issues would be raised by either party. Sometimes they go in front of an arbitrator, sometimes they'd be resolved by the national parties. But point being is that you would have new things that needed to be addressed in a joint contract administration manual. A lot of that is slowed down. So now we look at it, well, we got a new contract, now we need a new JCAM. But the whole idea of the JCAM was that it would be a living document that would be up to date, what the parties agreed to, so that it would minimize disputes in the dispute resolution process. And it's been a lot of years maybe 15 years since we've really updated the JCAM as we've gone along. They used to update it a lot more regularly, but recently the updates have been real slow and really after the fact. And, you know, you go into meet on a grievance and you really don't have the up-to-date, you know, agreements, contract agreements in front of you. It really handicaps the situation. And you would think that it would be in the interest of both parties to have that information updated so that they can resolve disputes. But I'll tell you, the Postal Service at almost all levels, and if your office doesn't know this yet, you know, don't tell them. But the Postal Service doesn't believe in the dispute resolution process anymore. By their actions, you know, they just don't believe in it. And so that's one of the indications. They're not in any hurry to put out no joint contract administration manual or anything. I mean, we just recently had an issue where the Postal Service was terminating the employment of people that failed, and I didn't want to use the word failed, but there's this NACI, which is like, you know, you go through the fingerprint system when you get hired on, and there's this NACI, which is this national agency that does a background check on you. And sometimes the background check is accurate, and sometimes it's your cousin, you know, or whatever, right? But they were coming back with these unfavorable, that's the word they used. You would get an unfavorable NACI like 1 year into your employment. And the Postal Service would say, nah, you know, that's a condition of employment. And it went in front of a national arbitrator before. We already had a national arbitration award. And they wanted to do it again. And so there was another national arbitration award recently that we just got. We won. The APW took it forward. We intervened as the NALC, and I think the mail handlers intervened as well. But anyway, we won that thing again with some very good language. And the Postal Service now tells us that we might not follow that. We're going to try to get it vacated in federal court and try to make the argument in front of a judge that getting a favorable NACI is a condition of employment, and that at any time you get an unfavorable NACI, they can separate you, which is wholly unfair because, one, we have a contract that says no employee may be disciplined or discharged except for just cause, but also the NACI itself is a lot of times not accurate. And they'll have this thing where you get this email and it'll say, if you want to respond to the, you know, the things that are indicated in the NACI report, email this address or whatever. And we've had people that have done that, and they just, it blows in the wind, you know, because the agency that does the NACI is not the one that is terminating them. The entity that is terminating them is United States Postal Service, but United States Postal Service takes no responsibility for the results of the NACI because that's a separate agency. You really can't appeal to that agency because that agency doesn't give a shit, you know? They don't employ you. They don't really care. So it leaves the now carrier, because if they did this in your, you know, before you were an employee, that's fine. They have the right to do that, even if it's unfair in the hiring process. And within the first 90 days or 9120, if you're a CCA, they would have the legal right to do that because that's what the contract says. But after that, now they don't have that legal right. And it just gives you an idea of where the post office mindset is at in regards to labor relations and in regards to the agreements that they have with us as letter carriers and with our union.
Okay. So they also said that we should have a new JCAM based on our OTDL alone. The changes on that, at least. A little birdie mentioned that the current national president may not be running for office again. Is this true or just a rumor?
I don't know. I heard the same rumor. I don't know. I don't even know what we want to call it a rumor because I didn't hear that he said that. I just heard that, you know, I heard maybe Brian Renfro's not going to run for another term. I think that's a possibility, but I don't know. He has not made any statements like that publicly, and as far as I know, he plans to run for another term. So we'll see.
Then, what about the investigation on the NALC charge and the one from Montana? Any update on those?
Yeah, those are two that did warrant investigators. Some of the charges that came from Brother Knowles out of North Carolina, and then there was something else out of Montana. Um, the way the process works, we go to the executive council meetings, and they'll show us the charges, but then they collect them. Like I don't actually have them in front of me, so I'm really short on details, and I don't want to misspeak about anything. But so those are the ones that triggered the investigators being appointed, and we do not have those written reports of those investigators yet. So once we have them, like I said, we'll convene and we'll determine as the executive council whether or not those charges are substantial, yes or no.
Okay. Why are they so eager to not employ people when they spend millions on OT?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the Postal Service spends so much money on overtime, penalty overtime, super penalty overtime now. And of course, you have the amount of money they spend on all these supervisors, the amount of money they spend in grievance payouts. And you're like, it would seem if they would just run a tighter ship, make contract compliance a condition of employment for their supervisors and managers, and staff the places properly. And we know what the situation is with the staffing. You have a lot of people on the rolls that are not really there, zero work hours and stuff like that. You have complement coordinators doing postal math that say, oh, we need like 13 people when in fact you need 16 or whatever. You have, when they do hiring, they'll hire, if they need 5 people, they'll hire 5 and 3 of them will show up and 2 of them will quit and they'll end with 1. And it's like, if you need 5, why don't you hire 10, 12, 15 or whatever? So um, I don't know if we'll ever get there. I would like to see us at least try to negotiate some language regarding staffing and complement and things like that, because I think it negatively affects us. And at the very least, we can negotiate language about mandatory overtime that forces the Postal Service to make better efforts at staffing prior to just using the kind of crutch or the easy answer of, we'll just schedule them to work. I mean, we're seeing like holiday schedule. We got language that says you're supposed to let the full-time regulars off that want to enjoy their holiday, and, constantly being mandated and drafted. And there's still a lot of mandatory overtime out there. And the post office is paying out a lot of money in penalty overtime and what's now double time and a half, super penalty overtime. And we'll see. We got a new Postmaster General now, so maybe there'll be some changes. Maybe we won't like the changes. but we'll see.
Okay. We've had issues with management refusing to tell us what the NACI report said, which is why we need to be able to grieve it and make them prove it. Why would management think they can overturn it in court?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an attorney, obviously. I'm a mailman. It doesn't seem logical because what you just said is exactly the way it is. I mean, we have a contract. The Postal Service, you look at Article 3, and it's like they can hire whoever they want to hire. During the probationary period, they can terminate that person's employment without cause, blah, blah, blah. But then after that, you get into Article 16. No employee may be disciplined or discharged except for just cause. And how does that not apply? You have a contract that says we represent every city letter carrier out there, and you're a city letter carrier. And how does that language not apply? And now we've had twice arbitrators, national arbitrators, say that language does apply. Like I say, the second one was stronger than the first one. And the Postal Service thinks that they're going to convince some federal judge that contract language doesn't apply and those national arbitrators' decisions are not binding on them. Who knows? I mean, we're in a crazy time right now, but logically speaking, they're going to lose that.
Okay. Can we get a Cariff store with plushies, keychains, and cans of mace?
What are plushies?
Mini mics.
Oh, and we'll have to work on that. I'll talk with the campaign team about that,
And socks, postal socks.
You know what? Socks, I'm not against the socks. That might be a good idea. We are coming up with some caps like this. So not like this, but we have these, it's going to look like this.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can see, but anyway, we're going to have those. We do have the coffee mugs that are, kind of popular. But I don't know. I'm hesitant to come up with all type of, stuff because it's just, I don't know. It could be like a distraction. But anyway, I'm sure we'll have stuff. I'm sure we'll have little swag items for you guys.
Okay, so if the NS day allows work assignment people to sign OT, how would the OT be equitable?
All right, read that one more time.
I think that's what, if the OT allows work assignment people to sign the NS day, how would the OT be equitable?
Well, if you allow the work assignment carriers, well, once again, it's not allowed under the contract currently. But if you did, then the carriers that are on the NS Day overtime list are the ones that need to be made equitable. You don't have to, it's just equitable distribution of those 8-hour opportunities, those 8-hour NS Day opportunities. So it wouldn't matter what happened on those regular days. It would just matter what happens on those 2 NS days throughout the quarter. So it would be no different than a person who's only on the NS Day overtime list right now. You would just deal with the people that are on the NS Day overtime list, whether they're also on the regular day overtime list as well. Wouldn't matter. You would just need to make it equitable amongst those people that are on that list, which could include the work assignment carriers, could include the regular day ODL carriers, and could include people that are not on any other list besides just the NS Day list. I think it would work.
Can we try and make the folks who do route adjustments take our input? Because I can't even express how dumb some of the stuff on some of the routes are.
The route adjustment process, in my opinion, is very broken because the grievance process is broken. So the Postal Service is now just going in there and decimating the zones that they're going into. Thankfully, they're only going into few zones around the country because they don't have the manpower. You have to have some type of skills in Chapter 2 of the M39. And we're talking about these unilateral route exams that the Postal Service has been doing. And they'll start up some more in September. There's a break of doing the route exams during the summer, but they are implementing a lot of them now over the summer. And we're seeing just the worst decisions possible, and also just stealing the time as much as they possibly can. Disallow that, or they put it into core. Like, you'll start off with like 100 hours and it'll go into core and it'll come out with like 82 hours. You're like, where did the 18 hours go? Just stuff that makes no sense. But then you file a grievance, right? And because the grievance process is dysfunctional right now, it's hard to really get resolution to that matter. And that to me is the problem. Now, if we get into a joint route process again, of course, we're going to want certain protections that we didn't have in the last joint route process, the TREAP. And mainly, we're going to want to make sure that the carrier's actual time on the street is the time that's used. No disallowing, no micromanaging, no, why were you there for 3 minutes and 5 minutes and, none of that. Just the carrier's actual street time on the route being how you quantify their street time. And then we're going to want to make sure that if the core program is used, that it's not used in the way that the Postal Service likes to use it, which is just to press a button and just, I call it like this. You take all the deliveries in the zone, throw them up in the air, and let them fall wherever they fall. That's core. When they just press the button. Of course, there's different, formulations within core and, in past joint processes where we've had access and where we've been equal partners, we've been able to go into zones and make those minor changes in core that right-size the routes without making a huge disruption to the whole zone, without taking away the senior person's mounted route or whatever route they bid on, taking away the people's Christmas, the part of the route where they get all the Christmas tips and they got 30 years in, and you took that part off and you gave it to this, person with no seniority, and, just all those type of things. And then just some of the crazy stuff to, like, you go down one side of the street and not the other side. You're like, what is this? Things like that we've seen when they utilize that core program in that way where they just press the button. So, generally speaking, I think we do want a joint route process, but it has to be fair, because we're signing our name to it. We, the union, we, the National Association of Letter Carriers, are saying that this is a fair adjustment of these routes. And the other thing is, under the current contract language, under 7.3A, the number of full-time regulars that you have, and particularly in a CCA office, meaning that they're hiring CCAs they're not in the all-career model. They're not hiring PTFs off the street. In those CCA offices, particularly, the number of full-time regulars that you have is just very, very important, because that's how we get our people converted. We need more full-time regular positions, and then our CCAs can get converted quickly or quicker into those positions. And under the current language, under 7.3A, it says that there will be one full-time regular for every full-time assignment that we have. And so those route adjustments, being fair and being, reflective of the amount of work that is there in that zone and the amount of full-time employees that we need, full-time letter carriers that we need in that zone is paramount. So if we can get to a joint process that's fair, I think that would be ideal. But I don't know if we're going to get there. The post office is just, man, it's they're not interested in fair. They're just, I don't know. Maybe we can get there, but from everything I've been seeing and hearing, and just kind of the vibe that you get, they're not really interested in fair. But hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong on that.
Okay, in regards to more route inspections, let's see. They're inspecting every station in my branch and sending OIG after carriers. What are your thoughts? And then we also have, at what point are we going to challenge that core isn't accurate and shouldn't be used?
Yeah, my original formulation was that core shouldn't be used, that we should never enter into a joint process that uses core. And some of my people, like I said, that have been in the joint route processes said, no, it's not always bad. We can use it in a certain way that is fair and that minimizes the impact to the carriers in the zone, which is, I think, what you want. You don't want all these wholesale changes. If you got to move 30 minutes, move 30 minutes. Don't change everyone's route because you got to move 30 minutes. So I don't know if we would take the position that core can't be used, but I think we would definitely have to take the position that the evaluated time has to be the end time. And what that means is that the first step of the process is to evaluate the routes when you go in there. And so you get those evaluations, and then I always tell our people, add up that time. So if you have 10 routes, did you come up with 80 hours or did you come up with 72 hours? If you came up with 72, you should end up with 9 routes. If you came up with 88 hours, when you total up those evaluations, you should come up with 11 routes. But what happens is when it goes into core, you start off with 80 hours and core moves everything around. They move around to travel to, the travel from, the relays, the, whatever. They move everything around, what they call the allied time. And when they do that, they're substituting the real numbers for their numbers, and it gets less and less and less and less. The more changes they make, the less time, more time goes away. And so for sure, if we're going to use core, the amount of time that we start off with that is evaluated, because those evaluations are agreed to jointly. When you have a joint process, you sit there with your management counterpart and you agree that this route is 743, or this route is 815, or this route is 912, whatever it is, you've agreed to that number, and then you should be able to add that up. And cumulatively, no matter how you mix and match it, cumulatively, you should be able to, you should come out with that same number after you do the adjustments. And a lot of times that's not the case. And I think that's a big problem. What was the first part of that question? The second part was about core. What was the first part? You said a lot of, they're in their branch going through all the routes and everything?
Yes, and they're sending OIG after carriers.
Yeah, I mean, OIG works for management, so look, it's a shame, but the Postal Inspection Service and OIG, they they're to me they work for postal management. They don't directly work under postal management, but we've had many situations where we've tried to shine a light on something that management is doing, like delaying mail, like whatever, all type of shit that they do, and nobody cares. But craft employees, especially letter carriers, they're on us. They're on us for everything that we do, and legally, I don't think there's nothing we can do about that other than to just follow the rules. Sorry, that's how it is out here.
Have you heard about higher ups restricting times to clock out? For instance, in our office, we have to be off the clock at 7 p.m., which is 11 hours of work.
I haven't heard of it so much recently, but that does not surprise me at all. And I think that so we got a new Postmaster General, and everyone's kind of talking about what are some of the things that we have to be concerned about. The number one concern I have, I don't know if it's a number, there's a lot of concern. Like they had those things in the bill that they didn't get through, but those things are still out there about like we wouldn't have paid steward time, or we'd have to collect our own dues. I mean, those things would be very, very damaging to us as a union and our ability to function and represent our members. But one thing that I think, and we've been struggling with this, is that when the Postal Service makes a decision to not deliver all the mail as a financial decision, either because they're understaffing the place kind of all understaffing to me is on purpose, because if you paid people enough and treated them right, you'd get plenty of applicants, but sometimes they actually have staff and they're doing something like that. We got a cutoff time, after this time we're not going to deliver any mail, and they're artificially making these mandates, and the result is that all of the mail doesn't get delivered. And so what is the response? And I think you got to try to get Congress involved in something like that. You have to try to document it. You can file grievances. They're not easy grievances to win, but there's language in the law, the Postal Reorganization Act, about the Postal Service obligation to deliver mail 6 days a week. And so, you would say, hey, this has to be followed, and the Postal Service isn't doing it. But that's one of my big concerns, is that in order, that they're going to cut costs to the point that they're going to cut costs and say, if the mail doesn't get delivered, it doesn't get delivered. And I don't, we would have to have a strong response to that. The public would have to have a strong response to that. Congress would have to have a strong response to that. And, that would be a fight. I don't think that would just go our way, whereas, 20 years ago, that would have went our way pretty easily. But in today's climate and the way the Postal Service has kind of mistreated the postal customers over the years, to the point where, service is not their number one priority for sure. It wouldn't be as easy as it would have been 20 years ago to mobilize the public, to get the public and Congress on our side on an issue like that. And that would definitely be a fight. And I think that's a fight we're going to have sooner rather than later, in my opinion.
Okay, so let's see what else we have.
Though, what would be your priority in trying to fix the grievance process, particularly with the compliance?
Contract language, I keep saying contract language. You can't go into contract negotiations with the Postal Service and not put the issues that we're having on the table and fight for resolution up into, taking it in front of an arbitrator if you have to. So I think that the leverage that we have regarding contract compliance is that we have forced the Postal Service to pay out a lot of money in grievance settlements, and there's a lot of language on the books that says, if you don't comply with this, you're going to pay this. And so I think you take that language, obviously, contract negotiation is a collective process, and you say, hey, what can we do so that you don't continue having this problem and we don't continue having this problem? Your problem is you're paying out all this money, and you're not just paying out the money in the grievance settlements, but the grievance itself is costing you money, because of course you're paying the stewards and you're paying both sides to look at this grievance and come up with a solution to it and develop the facts and all of that. So on their end, it's a big waste. On our end, our members want to know that the contract means what the contract means. It don't mean a whole lot if you can't enforce the terms of it. So I think we can get there with a collective approach. We're going to need a little leverage. Maybe that leverage comes from the Postmaster General, the Board of Governors. Maybe that leverage comes from Congress, something like that, where you shine a light on the issue to the point where the Postal Service has an incentive to address it, But I think the people that are filing grievances in the branches, keep doing it. Keep putting your foot on their neck. Keep making them pay out, because that's the only way we're going to get leverage and get this issue addressed. But when we have that opportunity in contract negotiations, we have to put that on the table. So we failed last time. The last round of contract negotiations was a failure on our part, for sure. I don't know if I want to bring it. If you go back and listen to, I did an episode with Corey on From A to Arbitration, February the 19th of 2023, prior to the start of contract negotiations. And that's what I talked about. I said, we have all these issues. There's 43 articles. So why are we not addressing all of our issues in the contract? And we could just never get there. And we've taken this approach in contract negotiations, which is insane to me, that we'll present something to the Postal Service. We'll say, hey, do you guys like the transfer rules? They're from the 80s. They're archaic, they're whatever, right? Maybe not a big deal, but if you want to transfer, it's a pretty big deal. So you say, well, Postal Service, you got these old transfer rules, don't make any sense. You want to do something about that? You want to negotiate over that? Nah, we're good. We'll just leave it alone. Okay. The NALC says, okay. That's crazy to me. That's insane. Like, how do we operate like that as a union when we go into contract negotiations? So let's put as much pressure as we can on President Renfro, if he's going to be heading up this next round of contract negotiations, that he's going to have to take a different approach to this thing. The approach we've been taking, it has not worked. It has not worked.
Okay. New question today. These pods teams going around doing street ops, when they're doing ops on 10 to 15 people in a day, are they required to give the carrier a copy of the 4584 or whatever form they are using? They seem to be doing these on a tablet and filing them electronically. Is this a grievance if it's not provided?
Yeah, you can request it. I think I saw someone ask that exact question. I don't know where it was, but I know Corey Walton answered it, and he said yes. And I agree with him. I mean, it's whatever they're using, whether it's the 4584 or whatever they're using, you should have access to that document. You can request it or have the steward to request it, and that request should not unreasonably be denied. So we have access to that. If they're refusing it, then we would file a grievance on their refusal to provide that document to us.
Would you consider adding some language in the contract to protect 8-hour carriers from being mandated?
Yes. So I think I've talked about this a couple of times, but this is a big pet peeve of mine, and it was huge going into the 2023 contract negotiations. And I wasn't the only one. I remember one day when Branch 9 had a rally in Minneapolis, and I'm looking at the signs and I'm like, wow, they're not just talking about better pay. They're like, an end to mandatory overtime and, better working conditions, safety on the job. And kudos to them. And they weren't the only ones. There was a few different branches, cities around the country that did that as well. I think they were the first, but anyway, whatever. Mandatory overtime it starts with the fact that the rural carriers already have it in their contract that you cannot be mandated off assignment on a regular scheduled day or on an NS day. You cannot be, that is language in the rural carriers contract. So it's doable. But I think for our purposes, we would put forward to the Postal Service that before they're going to mandate someone to work overtime that doesn't want it, they got to go through all of the steps. And all of the steps would obviously include first utilizing the ODL carriers. You got that as number one. And you can even add in that they would have to, you got ODL carriers up to 12 hours. Ask them if they want to volunteer past 12. That's in the contract now. To the extent possible, the person that's on the ODL that wants it, you have to utilize them to the extent possible. That's not in there now. Then you go to utilizing your auxiliary workforce. That's not in there now. Then you go to asking for volunteers. It says you may ask for volunteers, but it doesn't require them to ask for volunteers. And then I think you go to letter carriers that are on they want overtime in offices within a 30-minute, whatever. An NS day, I'd go up to an hour away if they want it, So basically you're gonna make that overtime available to a person that wants it within a commuting area before you're gonna require someone that doesn't want it to work the overtime. And then if that doesn't work, then you got to go into the hiring and the staffing, because if you go through all of those steps and you still got to mandate overtime, you got a serious problem on your hands with your staffing and your complement of carriers you have in that office. So I would go to the Postal Service and say, either you can just give us the same language the rural carriers already have, or let's go through the steps and make sure that before you mandate someone, you're going through all of these steps. I think all of that is wholly reasonable. And actually it benefits the employer. They may not see it that way, but you're losing employees. You're losing people because, believe it or not everyone wants to work 100 hours. Some of our people do. They love it. They make the money. God bless them. There's a lot of our people that, they just want to work that 40-hour schedule, maybe a little overtime. Like I said, ask for volunteers. If it's something I want, if it's a day when I can work, whatever, not a problem. But if it's volunteer, that's one thing. But if you're mandating someone who signed up for a job and that job said that Article 8.1 says you shall have a regular schedule, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. That's what you signed up for. And you said they came around with that list. They said, you want overtime on your NS day? You said, no. You want overtime on a regular day? No. You want overtime on your work assignment? No. And you said all that, and you're supposed to have that right under Article 8.1, and they're constantly mandating you to work overtime. That's not a job you're going to keep. You're going to start looking for another one where you can work that 8-hour schedule. So it shouldn't be a condition of employment, especially after you've made regular status. Because when you're an auxiliary employee, you're at the whim of the employer. They can schedule you a lot of hours or sometimes even a little hours. And you might not like either of those options, but that's the employer's right when you're a new employee. But once you make a full-time regular status, that should mean something. And it should mean that if you don't want overtime, you should be able to go home, reasonably go home after 8 hours and 40 hours a week. So we gotta keep fighting for that.
Okay. You had mentioned a while back about incorporating Sundays into full-time assignments. What kind of ideas or process would it take to accomplish this?
Yeah, someone's paying attention. I love it. So it goes back to this camera's cool, huh? It goes back. You guys see my ring light? I got high-tech equipment over here. It goes back to how you count full-time assignments. And currently under 7.3a, the full-time assignments are related to the number of routes that you have. But the other way to count full-time assignments, I think a better way to count full-time assignments, is based on the amount of work that the city letter carriers perform within that delivery unit. And to me, I want to count all of that. So, we have all these disputes. They're making us do rural carrier work. They're making us do clerk work, blah, blah, blah. And 204B hours, right? They're making us do supervisor work. Someone's volunteering to do supervisor work. I would say any hours that city letter carriers are performing, take those hours and divide those hours by 40, and that's the number of full-time regular letter carrier positions that you should have in that delivery unit or in that installation. And if we did it like that, then the Sunday hours would count toward those hours. Because right now, because the Sunday hours are not on a static route, they don't count toward full-time assignments. The other thing we can look into is, and I'd really like to see the Postal Service be more proactive in getting some of that, some of that parcel delivery that's out there. And we go everywhere. We go to, every single Target every day. We go to every single Walmart every day. We go to every single Macy's every day. Why we're not picking up from them and delivering and, that kind of thing. So if they were to develop maybe a parcel route schedule, which maybe would include Sundays, and it'd be a bid assignment. People say, oh, I don't want to work on Sunday. Well, someone might want to do it, and maybe it's like a 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. assignment, rotating days, or maybe it's 6 hours times, whatever, whatever. You kind of formulate these parcel route assignments. That would be another way to get full-time assignments that would include Sunday work, is by creating a full-time assignment that's parcel delivery. Maybe you have a cutoff time, and this would go in conjunction with bringing the start times earlier. So you move the start times to a reasonable, 7:30 or whatever, and then you say, okay, the carriers are going to hit the street 8:30, 9 o'clock, and any parcels that are coming into the unit or not delivered, they're going to go to the parcel routes. And maybe the parcel routes come in at 12 noon or something like that, and then they pick up that work, and you have a full-time, you're able to provide better service to the customer, and you have a full-time assignment. Somebody likes that schedule. You say, I don't want to work at noon, but somebody does. Somebody's going to like working from noon to 8 or whatever, and, delivering parcels. I don't know. But anyway, the idea is to maximize the number of full-time assignments that we'd have and to improve the customer service.
Why are uniform prices through the roof? I know we need to look professional, but over $100 for pants. What can we do to fix this?
Well, it's going to start with negotiating some better contract language. It's absurd that we agreed in this contract to the same language we had in the previous contract, which is language that says we're going to study the problem and try to come up with a solution. So I'm not an expert in uniforms or merchandise or whatever that field is, right? I know two things: deliver mail and grievances. But so I'm not going to say I'm an expert on it, but I know there's a solution, because you look at TSA, you look at UPS, you look at whatever. There's people out there that are in uniform, and they're not having the same issues that we're having. So there's a way to solve this problem, but I think the only way we're going to ever solve the problem is when we put the onus on the employer, and the employer has to make those payments. So traditionally, the uniform allowances have gone up by 2.5% every year, and that's been going on for a long time. And the uniform prices are probably going up, 10, 20, 30% every year, right? And so we still keep getting this 2.5% raise, which means that the burden is being shifted to the letter carrier instead of the employer, who has the responsibility of us being in uniform. Instead of that shifting to them. Now, if you shift the cost to them, if you said, okay, here's how much we need for a uniform allowance, $1,200, whatever it is, that's how much you're going to pay. And we're going to recalculate it every year, and you're going to have to pay that amount until you come up with a new process that's more cost efficient, and then you can renegotiate that. So maybe the Postal Service comes up with a system where they have a central merchant, and they distribute all the uniforms themselves out of a central warehouse or whatever. Maybe they come up with the quartermaster system, where you just kind of turn in your dirty uniforms, they give you clean ones, something like that. I don't know. Whatever they come up with, we can work with. What we can't work with is us absorbing all the costs, and them just saying, okay, well, we're just going to keep giving you the same uniform allowance, and we're going to require you to be in uniform, and you guys figure that shit out. That is not going to happen. And I really hope that President Renfro does not try to agree to anything like that, in the next round of contract negotiations, especially if we don't have a solution to the uniform problem. Now it'll be 2 contracts where we've had that language that says there's going to be a committee and it's going to look at, better ways of doing the uniform program. And like I say, until the Postal Service has an incentive to actually solve the problem, as long as we're paying for it, they don't have the incentive. And that's why that contract language is so important. It has to put the burden on the employer. It has to.
Would you be interested in removing the contract language that allows carriers to volunteer to exceed 1260 and make it absolute again?
I would rather defer to the delegates. I'm sure that'll come up as a resolution at our next convention. I don't know. I think there's opinions on both sides of that. I understand the thought process. I understand both sides. On one side, you say we want people to be able to go home and be safe and not work so many hours, and the Postal Service be forced to hire more people, and we fought for the 8-hour day, and that's the type of job we want to have, and that's the type of union we want to fight for that. And on the other hand, you say, I got members that want to work this overtime and are making good money. I mean, you're making $100 an hour at that super penalty rate, that 2.5 times rate. If you're at the top step, you're making $100 an hour out there delivering mail. Are we in a position as a union to tell our people that want to make $100 an hour that they can't do that? So I don't know. So I would want to see what the delegates at the LA convention, what their will is on something like that. And whatever their will is, that's what, if I'm the president of a union, that's what I negotiate over. That's the direction I take. The delegates to the convention are the ones that set the agenda.
Will you campaign on pushing the branches to implement a Zoom option for carriers who can't make it to the meetings? Will you push the executive council to have branch presidents hold votes?
I don't understand the second part. Do you? Branch presidents to hold votes.
Maybe via Zoom?
Is that person on? Maybe they can clarify that second part. I'll start on the first part, and maybe they can clarify the second part a little bit. So the first part, I don't know. Well, every branch is different, and I'm real hesitant as the national union to mandate to branches how they conduct their business, other than they have to conduct their business in a way that is in line with the NALC Constitution, meaning that they have to be democratic, they have to hold elections, they have to, if you make a motion at a meeting and that motion passes, the branch needs to implement what that motion is, et cetera, et cetera. So branches are, they are normally, and they're not supposed to cross state lines. So they're geographic, they're a geographic area. The branches used to be, just one city of letter carriers. That's, branch 1 is Detroit, Michigan. Branch 2 is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And, you can go to every city in America. At one point, there was over 6,000 branches. And then they started merging. But even with the mergers, they're generally merging with a neighboring branch, a neighboring carrier. So they're in a geographic area. Now, some of these geographic areas stretch for over 100 miles or whatever, some ridiculous amount. And so every branch has to figure out, and certainly with the new technology that's out there, there's ways of conducting your business. But it doesn't, and this doesn't have to be for every branch, but like my branch 11 Chicago, we have a Zoom option, and the Zoom option is available to any member if they want to see the meeting. So if they want to look at it, get the information, they want to, see the discussion, whatever, there's transparency there. They're able to participate. We got retirees all over the country. They're out there in Arizona, probably not in the summer, but whatever. They're out there in the winter for sure. But whatever, you have people that are, just don't want to make the trip to the Union Hall and they want to get on. And I think that's great. But we don't allow people that are on Zoom to vote and participate in the meeting. They're really not there because for us, it's too much. It's like, we have hundreds of people. We have like almost 5,000 members, you know, so every branch is different. You know, that works for us. I don't know any member that has complained about that, actually. And we put that in place probably since COVID. And the members here in Chicago are happy with that. And if they're not, they come to a meeting and make a motion and try to change it, right? But I think the question was kind of like what I pushed from the national union to mandate to branches that they got to do it this way or that way. And I don't think that would be my role as president of the union. And I don't think that's the national union's role to tell the branches what to do, but to make sure that the will of the members of the branches is what is, you know, being done.
So specifically, the problem is presidents will shelf it or put limits into the motion.
Oh, like tabling a motion when they're supposed to
Yeah.
call for a vote and stuff like that. Yeah. Once again, it is the members of the branch that are the boss of that branch. Of course, every branch is a subordinate branch of the National Association of Letter Carriers, meaning that they have to operate under certain rules. So, yes, I would intervene if there's a situation where the members have a motion, you know, some member has a motion, it's not being voted on, you know, that the democratic will of the members of that branch is not being followed through. Then I think the national union does have to intervene. And the way I would do it is through the regional offices, you know. I would assign somebody from the regional office, or they could do it themselves, you know. Just go to the next meeting and make sure that the Constitution is being followed, right? Make sure that if there's a motion that the members of the union are allowed to vote on that, that the things that they're supposed to do per the NALC Constitution and the governance of federal and subordinate branches, you know, that those things are being followed. So I would say yes, we'd intervene to an extent, but you know, we're not going to get into a situation where we're telling any branch how they should conduct their business, because that's up to the members of the branch. They're the bosses. They're that president's boss. I get a lot as the business agent in my region. I get a lot of calls from members that want to tell me about what their president is doing, this and that, and I'm always like, hey, why don't you do something about it? I'm not their boss. You know, it doesn't work like that. These are separate entities. These are branches. You guys, the members, are the boss, and we want to empower the members of our union to, you know, have that active role, and to, you know, their will should be what happens. And so that's what we want to do, but we don't want to micromanage, and, you know, we don't want to tell the branches or obligate the branches or force them to do certain things a certain way. It's up to them how they want to operate.
Okay. What do you think about the CLC pushing their group at local station stand-up talks and at local branch meetings? How do you intend to fight back against the unfair practice of political solicitation on the workroom floor and at local branches?
I got to be honest, I didn't know that was a problem. I honestly have never heard from any care, and I'm not saying it's not a problem. Look, I think I err on the side of you know, we should be able to campaign, for lack of a better word. You know, I wish people would put my stuff up on every bulletin board in the country, and, you know, pass out buttons and case magnets, and, you know, have debates on the workroom floor about who should be the next president of the union, and, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm not going to fault any organization for taking an active role at their station within that branch or within an installation or whatever. That type of discourse is good for us. I mean, we don't want any like bullying or nothing like that. And
Right.
as long as it's open, and as long as everyone can participate, and as long as there's a good discussion and it is honest, you know, I think that that's a good thing. But maybe there's some specifics in there that I'm not aware of that, you know, maybe are a negative, but just on the surface, on its face, I don't see a negative to that.
Okay. Education is a huge problem in our branch. What would you do to make education more accessible to members of the NLC?
Let's see. Education within the branch. So I think that the NALC, the National Association of Letter Carriers, the national union, has the main responsibility for education. We do it through the regional offices. And, the National Business Agent specifically, per the Constitution, is empowered, contract enforcement, contract interpretation. It goes along with, training and education, particularly of the grievance handlers, within that region, but also just generally with the membership. So I think that, once again, the people in the branch obviously are the boss. If they want more educational opportunities, and they want to use their dues money to pay for that, then they go make a motion and they say, hey, I want the president to, have a forum on Sunday, invite all the people to come and, ask questions and go over certain articles of the contract or whatever it is that you'd want. You have the ability to make that motion. What we would be doing as a national union is making sure that every member, and like I say, particularly the grievance handlers, have access to the training materials so that they could play their role in the grievance process, or in just, general knowledge of the memberships, which is something that makes our union stronger. So you gotta, you coordinate those activities. People learn best with participatory type classes. So you try to gather people into a certain area, like here in Region 3. And, I'm not trying to say, hear what we do, so you got to do it this way. But just as an example, we're always doing new steward classes all around the state. Our region is only one state, the state of Illinois, but we put on classes, and we put on steward classes. We call them steward pods, where the stewards in a geographic area, regardless of what branch they're in, they get together. And then you have all these kind of workshops and things that are available to the members. I think we can do a better job. Some of that stuff you can do easily through, like videos, and through, like, let's say you put on a video about a particular topic, and then you have a Q&A afterwards where people can ask questions about that particular topic. You could do that nationwide. You could roll that out. You say, hey, sign up for this. Like during COVID, we were doing a lot of that stuff, and I don't know why we stopped doing it. There's still a need for it, particularly when you have people that are spread out, working a lot of hours, that type of thing. But I still, I believe in-person training, just because people learn best when they're participating, when they're involved, and when you're doing a training. Like the post office just did these classes on the NERP, right? And, there's hundreds of people on these calls, and that ain't training. You're not really learning anything that way. So I don't want to just check a box and say, we put on this class for, it was available to everybody kind of thing. You want to do real training, where people can really learn and have a good understanding of the different provisions and how they apply and things like that, and what their role is. So we do that mainly in person, like I said, through the regional offices, and you coordinate that. But as far as your branches, they supplement that. They do additional things on top of that. And, I think the training program and education has got to be comprehensive, but it starts from the national union. And then I think you guys in the branches, you pick up on that, you add to it, do different things like that. So.
Have you seen the new Postmaster General scanner video today? And if so, what do you think?
I did not. I read his two-pager. I think the video was the same as, was the video? Has anyone seen it? I thought it was going to be the same as the what was in the written form. Like it was just going to be a video oral form of the same written form. So if that's the question, I did read that two-page document, but I'm not sure if it was the same thing that came out on the scanner.
UPS is struggling right now to fulfill their contract. Should we consider ourselves lucky to get the mediocre contract we have? Do you think we'll benefit from UPS's struggles?
Well, the first part, I'm a definite no on that. I'm a definite no on that. I think that you you go forward and you try to secure the best contract you can. And I don't think it's accurate to say that, I don't think the UPS drivers regret the contract that they got. I think that they got a lot of great things in their contract, and I think they're happy and proud to have those provisions in their contract. So with everything, there's going to be challenges and there's going to be pushback, and you're not going to get this, you're not going to get that, and you just kind of move forward. But I don't know that. I don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're competing against other workers, um, unless they're non-union workers, I guess. I mean, honestly, we're a unionized workforce, and we want to have the best contract we possibly can have, and then we want to be the delivery mechanism for America. But UPS drivers, they have the same, they have a little bit separate. They don't necessarily go door to door. They got a separate business model than the United States Postal Service. So I think there's room for them to thrive and prosper, and there's room for us to thrive and prosper. But now, one thing I would like to see us do is to make a move to organize the Amazon delivery drivers. And they've passed us up. There's more Amazon delivery drivers than there's city letter carriers in this country, and we haven't really made a good effort. It's not going to be easy, but to unionize those drivers and make sure that they have a
Yeah.
good contract is the number one thing that would help us down the road in us having a good contract. So I would rather go that route than. You never want to have that race to the bottom where it's like, oh, we don't want to get a good contract because then they won't employ us anymore, and that's not really a winning strategy.
Okay. What will happen if the next negotiations drag out past Renfro's term and he loses the election? Will the incoming president then have to take over in the middle of negotiations?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy.
Yeah, I don't know how that would go. We've never done that before, to my knowledge. I don't know of any circumstance in our history where that has happened. But if the circumstances are the way the question was asked, that would be exactly what would happen.
Can the NBAs have the branch presidents at their local meeting to hold a vote for the implementation of Zoom?
You understood that one? Can the NBA
NBAs have the branch presidents at it might be, can the presidents have the NBAs at their local meeting to hold a vote for the implementation of Zoom? Or is this for the it might be something for the executive council instead. We'll come back to that. It's
Is that
20
one on Facebook? Oh,
Yes. It's 2025. Why are we still mailing grievances, resolutions, voting by mail, costs according to the filing, 500K to 1 million, but could be far cheaper as a digital option? Why do we have to meet every 2 years at National for resolutions when we could be more active and on top of everything if we had a digital platform with verified sign-ins of members?
Yeah, I like that. I would like to pursue that. I think that I know that there's a concept out there, and I haven't seen it implemented, but there's two sides to it. The one is the processing of the grievance, right? So the appeal within the Postal Service, we appeal the grievance in Formal A to Formal A, Formal A to Step B to the regional office. To have a digital system, kind of like Microsoft Teams or, some type of cloud-based system where you could appeal the grievances securely and everyone would have access. Well, the people that need to have access to those grievance files would have access to them. The other side of that is a member having access to file a grievance digitally and getting information about their grievances, like where it's at, what step is it at, what's the status of it, was there a resolution? Can I, if it was resolved, can I click on this and it'll tell me what the resolve was? You know what I mean? So that, because our grievance system, that would be a lot harder to do, because our grievance system, the way it works is the branch controls the grievance process at the informal A and the formal A level, and then the NELC takes it over at step B and beyond, right? So I don't know if you could definitely organize an NELC based system that would start at step B, where members could have access to their grievance. But what about a system where a member can say, I want to file a grievance, here's my issue, and then maybe a little prompt here. So what happened? When did this happen? You've kind of form fill or something like that. And that be the start of your grievance. And then you'd be able to kind of track that through the system. I don't know how we would do that, because we'd have to coordinate that with the branches. And that might be a little bit tricky, but I think that would be a very valuable resource for our members. I'd like to brainstorm about that and see where that would go.
Who wrote the TA? Because to me, it seems like management wrote it all out, since it was pushed on us like a dictator telling us we had no other choice.
I don't know who. I mean, some of that stuff comes from provisions that were negotiated by the APWU. There was a couple of those things in there that came from other, contracts like the APWU. And then I'm sure you have provisions that we wrote, that the Postal Service wrote, that were, back and forth or whatever. But, generally speaking, that's the question for President Renfro, how that language came about, because he was the one that, approved of all that language, and he had the right to go in front of Dennis Nolan, and say, we don't want this or we don't want that. And we didn't take advantage of that opportunity. So he must have been comfortable with that language as it was written, whether we wrote it, the Postal Service wrote it, or they copied it from some other contract. Either way, it was language that our president agreed to.
I know this is not a very important question, but is maternity leave something that the union can do, and maybe not 3 months, but anything would help?
Yeah, it's a very important question. We got a lot of female carriers now, more than ever, and it's a big issue. And so technically the term is family leave, but I'm with you, to whoever asked that question. I think you can negotiate maybe a separate leave for the mother and versus the father, and then you have adoptions and things like that as well. But to me, when a woman births a baby, that's major, and I think that there should be some paid leave associated with that. Federal employees get 12 weeks of paid leave. You're probably aware of that. So that's something that we could negotiate. That's something that we could try to get postal workers included in that federal law. I don't know if the environment is good for that right now legislatively, but that's certainly something that we can negotiate over. And I don't think it's a minor issue at all. I think it's uncivilized that in today's day and age, you go have a baby, and it's like either you got to go right back to work and try to figure out, pumping the milk, the daycare, just all these different things, the schedule, and you have to go through all that while your body is still recovering from just having had a baby, or you take off work and you're not receiving any money. And sometimes that works for people, and sometimes it doesn't. But I don't think you should have to make that choice. I think we should have that in our contract, when you work for the United States Postal Service and you have a career job. I think that's one of the basic things that should mean, maternity leave.
Okay, what's the next one we have? What are your next stops on the Kick the Tires tour?
This Wednesday, I'll be in Branch 129's meeting, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This Saturday, I will be in New Orleans, Branch 124. 8 p.m. meeting, 8 p.m. Saturday night. That's going to be a blast. And then I'm going to mess up the branch. It's like 13 something, but it's a Gulfport Mississippi. They have a barbecue picnic type situation on Sunday, this Sunday coming up. And then be on to the Texas State Convention, which is in Austin, and get involved in all the different activities there for a couple of days. That's what's coming up.
Okay, since not all regions have as much training as Region 3, will you accept stewards or officers from other regions for Region 3 training?
I usually don't. And the reason why, obviously, you don't want to close your doors to anyone, but um, when you're let's say you're a steward, you are a steward, whether you're elected or appointed by the president, you're a steward that works under the president of that branch. And similarly, like I said, the National Business Agent is in charge of contract enforcement and contract interpretation. And not everyone sees everything the same way. Not everyone wants to pursue issues in the exact same way. And I'm real hesitant to say, you know, show you how we do it and then try to force our way on someone else in another region. And honestly, if I'm the president of the union, we're not going to have that problem, because I'm going to work with all of the regional offices and make sure that that it's top of the line, that those training opportunities are there for everybody. But in the current status, I know it's a little hit or miss. I know that not everyone is getting the same or the best training opportunities, but still, I'd be hesitant to. But I'm not going to turn nobody away either. But anyway, it's not that simple, I guess.
I like the background music, how it started
Yeah.
playing these
Did you
whole
see the guy on the
tutorials. I
bike with
like
the
that.
lights?
That was perfect timing there. I like that.
There's a
It's
guy with the lights on his bicycle spokes.
I didn't see that one. This is 53rd Street out there. It's a lot of action. A lot of action out here.
All right. I don't know if there's anything else. Anybody else got anything?
There was a question on here and I can't find it, but I know that it was from YouTube, and it was like, how do you plan on like funding your campaign, Mike? I think it said, but like I lost the question there. I'm trying to find it.
Well, we've been funding it so far, with donations and raffles. Like recently, we raffled off 2 Blackstone grills. We raised over like $10,000. So everything that we've done so far, as far as like merchandise, mailings, all the travel and stuff like that, it's all been paid for, and we still have money in the bank. So we're doing pretty good on fundraising so far. We're going to kick off a nationwide fundraiser starting. I think it's going to start August 1st. Hopefully, now that we have a little money, we got a couple raises, we got a little back pay coming, we think, on August 29th. But we got some good raffle prizes, and we're looking for people that can help, sell raffle tickets, just, fundraise. We're raise a little money. A little bit from every carrier goes a long way. So the raffle tickets are $5. We're going to try to work out a system where, like I say, caps and different merchandise for the people that are selling the tickets. We're going to take care of them, give them different little swag items, merchandise and stuff like that for them. And hopefully we can, develop that network. Fundraising it goes hand in hand with kind of winning an election, so you want people all over to be involved in fundraising, because now they're aware of the campaign, they're vested, they're getting information. We hope that people, when they get raffle tickets, they'll follow us, follow the YouTube or the TikTok or the Facebook, so they can be in the loop and getting information and that kind of thing. So we'll be doing a lot more of that, but look for something real soon on that. And if you can help us out with that, obviously you guys know that the campaign has a lot of different volunteers, and everyone's been working hard. I appreciate everyone, but it does take a lot. We're talking about a nationwide campaign. So if you can help out by selling some raffle tickets in your station, within your branch, please contact us. Let us know. We'll definitely get some out to you very, very soon, because we're going to roll that out probably in about a week or two.
Okay, let's see. How do we get signed up for the mailings? I guess your email list, maybe?
There should be a spot on the website where you can go. I can't pull it up in front of me, but it should be one of those. What
One
do
of
you
the
call that?
tabs?
What do you call that hamburger thing that
Like,
you go and you say
the
it's got the
menu?
different the menu? Yeah, I think it's one of the things on the menu. Like if you want to receive information from the campaign, I think you can go in there and put in your contact information, and you'll be able to receive information that way from the campaign.
Oh my gosh, your campaign page is funny. Okay, so it's you click on campaign page, and then to sign up to receive messages, you scroll down past the Uncle Sam version of Mike. uh, so Mike, would you be willing to visit stations that are far smaller than what you have been during campaigning, even if its voter count isn't as large? Could see some word of mouth support spread by doing so.
I mean, I don't know how small you're talking about here, but obviously, I've gone to some that, I mean, I've gone to some branches that are less than 100 members. So I don't know if you're talking about like a station where there's 3 carriers. I mean, hey, invite me out. I'll try to make it out. I can sometimes I can work it in the schedule, right? Like if I'm in that geographic area, I can get over there. I'm gonna try to go everywhere I possibly can. I don't want to make any promises, guarantees, but I'm normally pretty resourceful, and we got a year to go here. So if you say, "Hey, I want you to come to this town at some point," I will write that down, and I pretty much have a good idea that I can get there at some point over the next year. So I guess that's a mostly yes. I had one guy, I'll tell you guys a story. I had one branch here in Illinois. So we've been doing this thing over the last couple, 3 years where the branches that were, kind of non-functional, we've been reaching out to them and saying, hey, wouldn't it be better if you were part of said branch that, actually has meetings, votes and, spends their money and, does things like all branches do. And for the most part, yeah, they've been saying, okay, yes, sign me up. And we've been working with them. And, hey, you want to merge with this one? You want to merge with that one? Or do you want to come up with your own bylaws? We're just kind of trying to work with them. And there was one branch in Carrollton, Illinois, my man James Waters. And he calls me up. We had sent him a letter to the members of the branch saying, hey, we don't know nothing about you guys. Do you guys want to merge or whatever? So he writes me back a nice letter like, hey, we're doing just fine here, man. We're branched. I think it's 2603, whatever branch they are. And, why are you saying we're not a functional branch? So I call him up and he's like, well, why would you write that letter? And I said, brother, I've been a business agent for 10 years and I don't know who you are. Like, you don't come to any trainings, whatever. And so we got him in on like we have a regular meeting with all the presidents every Thursday, and we got him in on that. And he said, hey, how come you've never come to this office? And I said, oh, good point. I'll be there. And it's probably within a month or so. I went out there, 3 or 4 carriers or whatever. But hey, they're members of the union too. So went out there and checked in with them, see how they were doing, and see what issues they had. And I mean, I appreciate the brother saying, "Hey, we're a branch too, and we want to be part of whatever you guys are doing as well." And we just hadn't had any contact, but now we're in contact. So that was a success story for a small office.
He is a branch of 8. Total is 12 people. They're centralized in the state, but some areas are pretty rural. I don't know what branch number he is yet.
Yeah, so it looks everything. The easy way to contact the campaign is everything is Caref for Prez, CAREF, the number 4 PREZ. So if you go to the website, you can send a message through the website careforprez.org. You can send an email to careforprez@gmail.com, and you can find us on all the social media sites and send messages like through Facebook or through YouTube or whatever. I think there's a Discord.
5923, branch 5923.
It sounds like a small branch.
Heat restrictions, cold restrictions. How cold is too cold? And the same with heat.
For what purposes? Outside or in the post office or in the vehicle or?
I think like outside while you're delivering mail, I assume.
Oh, I don't know. I'm an old school mailman, so I always make the attempt. I
Yeah,
mean,
outside.
it's too cold once you start, you can't feel your fingers. As long as your heat works in your vehicle, then you stop and you go heat up and that kind of thing. I'm a firm believer in we're essential. Just pay us like we're essential, treat us like we're essential. But I like to think that we're gonna make every effort we can, within safety guidelines, of course. But if you can't, then you can't. But if you have heat in the vehicle and you can get out there and make the deliveries in the wintertime, I think we should try to do that. In the summertime, obviously there's, we really need that air conditioning in the vehicles. And we really need the ability to take as many breaks as we need to. And so hopefully, as long as we have those things, then I think we can hopefully safely do our job. So.
Yeah. Let's see. So when do we start voting for the NALC president?
So the nominations will take place at the convention next year in Los Angeles on the third day of the convention, which will be August the 5th of 2026. And then I think the fourth day or soon thereafter, the national president will form the balloting committee, which will run the election, and they will set up the time frame. But normally the time frame is the convention is in August, so you're voting in like September, October. It'll be a mail ballot election. Every single member of the union gets a ballot in the mail. You can vote for president, executive vice president on down. There's 10 officer positions. Out of Washington, D.C., there's 3 national trustee positions. And then, then you get to vote for your national business agent as well. So there's 14 possible options. As long as there's a contested race in any one of those 14, then you'll be able to vote on those 14 positions at that time. If there's only one person nominated for any of those positions, then that person will win that election by acclamation, and they won't come up on the ballot. I gotta wrap this thing up. Maybe like 1 or 2 more questions. If you
Okay.
can. Thank you.
So
Sorry. I hear them kids over there, and I got to go do something with them.
Are they cutting funding on the new postal vehicles, which we kind of talked about that before?
Yeah, that's a danger, and there was some money that came, like a grant or something, and then obviously the post office is putting some of their money in, but there's still the Postal Service hasn't drawn down all. It's like a line of credit or a line of money that they can draw from to pay for the next generation delivery vehicles, and some of that money is still there, so they haven't drawn all of that. And so if they change the law and they revoke that funding, then I don't know what happens with the next generation delivery vehicle, which has really been rolling out real slow. I mean, we have some out there, but it's not a lot. Really, it's really rolling out slow.
The last question. Can I get clarity on dependent care? I heard it's 80 hours in a year, but then my manager, if I have to use 24 hours in 90 days, I get in trouble.
Sick leave for dependent care, I'm assuming?
Yes.
If you're talking about sick leave for dependent care is up to 80 hours per year.
Uh-huh.
That's it. That's the answer. Look in Article 10 for more information.
Article 10. Okay. Okay. Well, unless it's FMLA and it's unscheduled. Okay. So, I guess good night, everybody.
Awesome. It's nighttime everywhere, right?
I would hope so.
Hey, I want to thank everyone that put forward questions, everyone that got on and listened. And look, this is something that I'm this the type of candidate I'm going to be. This is the type of person I will be as a president if you guys elect me as a president. I believe in being open to the membership, accessible, and collectively we can figure stuff out better than just as individuals. So hopefully that's the type of union we can have going forward. And I'm going to try to do my part. I'm going to be campaigning. I'll be out there for the next year, presenting what my vision for the union is, and working with the different people, in all the different stations and offices and branches and states and regions and all of that. So if you guys need anything from me, if we can help you out in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you want to help the campaign, like I said, with fundraising or getting out information, that'd be great. We'd love that. So appreciate you guys' time this evening, and be safe out there. Be safe out there, please. You got anything else, Renee, Sarah?
No.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Awesome. Good night, everyone. It's been a blast. Thanks.
Did it not end it?
No.
I hit the
We're still
button.
here. Everyone.